number of quotes, and what movies do you think they're from? You know, to quote the actor's character, you probably think, "Play it again, Sam." Casablanca. Um, you might think, "If you build it, they will come." Field of Dreams, great film. What, by the way, love that film. Um, Luke, I Am Your Father. Star Wars. Beam Me Up, Scotty. Star Trek. Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, who's the fairest of them all? Snow White. However, if I told you they're all wrong, hey, they're right. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about the so-called Mandela effect, which got nothing to do with trans-dimensional effects, people flipping from one timeline to another, alternate realities, different universes. What it has to do with is how human memory works. How human memory really works is not like you'll have an experience and it gets recorded. You have a set of neural activity reacting to your experience that creates neural connections and patterns of neural connectivity between one neuron and another. Thousands, billions of neurons can create a whole experience, right? When one neuron fires in a specific way, it will cause other neurons nearby to fire in a specific way, depending on how the specific the first one was. And then the next one, and the next one, and it's called a cascading effect. But every event can, if it happens again, or very similar things happen again, you're reinforcing that neural connectivity, but it's a pattern. It's not a real recording of an experience, right? So when you have a past experience that is a certain way, creates all this neural connectivity that is, you can think of it as a pattern of connections between neurons. In the present tense, you have something very similar. It's going to remind you of that thing, and you might get deja vu. Oh, this happened before, but that's something else. I'll talk about how deja vu works. A mind trick. So we'll make a separate video on that if I can put it into words. An experience I had in deja vu. One day in my mid-20s, I saw firsthand as it was happening. You know, kind of like I was in sort of a really chilled out, almost like meditative state. But I was thinking about something. I can't even remember now what it was, but I opened my eyes and thought, wow, that's weird. Not because of the deja vu experience, but I realized what my brain did to trick me to have that feeling. But I was like subjectively and objectively observing it, if you will. Objective, I don't know. That's the wrong word, but I was like, had this, because I was in that meditative state, I had some kind of detachment, but the feeling came through anyway. It's kind of bizarre, but I thought that was pretty damn cool that the human brain can do that, in which you can be separate from the trick than it does. And it's not like it's trying to trick you. It is something that is just happens. But if you are in certain mental states, you can see it happening, and still you have this temporary. It was much more temporary. I think that feeling you get. You think, whoa, you get kind of tripped out temporarily, like this has happened before. Had that initially, but again, perhaps there's a delay with the critical thinking to come in and say, you just observe what the brain's doing that tricks you into thinking this. And that makes sense because we are kind of like you. We feel things and we're emotional first before we get into critical thinking. It's the first thing the brain does. Then the logic and reasoning comes in afterwards. Of course, that can be atrophied in some people's mental makeup and their brains. If you have a prefrontal damage, that can be suffering quite a bit, and you'll be more emotional than you would be otherwise because of that damage. So, looking at this Play It Again, Sam, and Snow White, who's the fairest of them all, Beam Me Up, Scotty, Luke, I Am Your Father, quotes from films. They're all wrong. Yeah, Luke, I'm Your Father from Star Wars, right? They're all actually wrong, but you're remembering it in a way that you have it coloured by what you assume would be most likely, but it's only similar to the pattern. And you have other patterns that colour your worldview, and you think, oh, it must have been that then. So accessing the memory accessing any memory via the current present tense perspective of the world can change how you think of what actually happened. Yeah, now that's very important. The first written languages out there, people were saying, this is no good. You keep writing down everything down. Nobody ever remember anything, apparently. So but I think to this day, it's very important to have recording devices that are digital and writing stuff down because human memory is not that good. Yeah. But there are, I don't know, there's some exceptions with some very rare individuals who appear to have a photographic memory, but even they will get data wrong. So this is not parallel universes. This is not like the devil in the details that people got paranoid about. It's conflating one thing with another because of similarity in one thing to another and vice versa. So this article talks about those things. I have psychologytoday.com in front of me, and it talks about those quotes from films Play It Again, Sam, Casablanca, and Beam Me Up, Scotty, Star Trek, Luke, I'm Your Father, Star Wars. It has the quotes from that using those as an example. So they go on to mention it's not this, it's not that, and then they eventually say it's conflation, as I just said. And then you go on to say, at the beginning of this piece, you encountered several quotes from that seem to come from famous films. Each of these quotes was actually incorrect. In Casablanca, Bogart never asked Arthur Wilson to play it again, Sam. But he does say, play it. There's a similarity. Play it. I go, why Sam? Somebody might have just said Sam, and things get propagated through conversation with other people's perspectives as well. You get the problems with degradation of information the more it's copied via the spoken word from one person to another. People can exaggerate as well. is how myths are born. Because in every myth is that tiny grain of truth, right? If you really put it apart. But it looks like it's entirely a lie, many myths out there, because they get so outlandish. So, he said play it. In Field of Dreams, the actual line is, if you build it, he will come. And that's how I remember it. And I've seen it, people say in this other way. And it's frustrating to me because I don't have always find myself in conversation if they're talking about movies, Kevin Costner, great actor. And I'll say, no, that's not what he said, you know. I think it was Kevin Costner, wasn't it? In pretty short. Just that's who I remember it as. Maybe it was a person who was similar. Let me see. Because he was the guy with this pitch, wasn't he? Field of Dreams. Directed by Phil Robinson. Yeah, Kevin Costner. I like the film. It's pretty cool. Anyway, going back to the article from psychologytoday.com. If you build it, he will come. In both cases, the real quotes are quite close to what most of us believe them to be. That's a very important point, the pattern recognition. But it's also why, one of the things about the brain, we're social animals, and one of the tools for use for being social is looking at people's faces to know what, in conversation, to know what they're feeling when they're speaking or where they're looking. We're primates, but if you look at monkeys, apes, they don't have as much white of their eye as we do, if at all. But that's part of our more social skilled side. That's a bit of a grey area. I know some people over the internet are very socially inept, right? But the internet's a honeypot for people like that who are trying to make themselves feel better about themselves, right? But you know from a distance which direction people are looking quite well because there's so much white around the eye, right? So this is reading on to say most of us, the real quotes are quite close to what most of us believe them to be. Many of them are referred to in other films or pieces of writing, or even in parodies of the original film, which again, people doing it in parody, like, Luke, I am your father, and they go, no, there's memes on that, there's jokes about that, such as 1972's Play It Again, starring Woody Allen. So that's another reference to the Casablanca. In a similar vein, many people remember the 1990s children's film starring the African-American comedian Sinbad as a genie called Shazam. I don't remember it that way. No such movie existed, although a 1996 film called Kazam starred the African-American athlete and actor Shaquille O'Neal as a genie named Kazam. Further, Shazam was a popular comic about a hero with magical powers published by Fawcett and later by DC Comics, Sinbad is also the name of a heroic fictional sailor. I remember the fictional sailor, Sinbad the Sailor. Uh, Fictional sailor from the Middle East who had several supernatural adventures. Yeah. So the Sinbad starring Kazam is likely another example of conflation. Okay, yeah. Where some correct details get a bit muddled in our memories. But it's like when this brain we have, fascinating organ, is not a digital device recording things as they actually are. There's no, you know, there's no sound waves that occur in the brain. There's no light in the brain. And yet we see and we hear. It's completely dark inside your skull, but light, which is radiation, hits our eyes, stimulates the optic nerve in particular ways, and it fires up our responses to it. Is our visual cortex fires up and creates what we see. We can't see ultraviolet light. A bee can, so it navigates to flowers that reflect enough of your ultraviolet so that you can see it. Yeah, interesting when you think of the brain creates the experience of reality from simulation of the real to the organism that we are from the outside in. And the stimulation from the outside is causing the brains to create an experience. How real is it's impossible to, the real world is impossible to know. But the typical foundations of how we agree on the world is based on biological survival mechanisms. We don't create something in our brains that has nothing to do with, it has no relation to being there for a reason. The reasons that we see colors at all that are created in our brain is because that particular type of radiation, in light, like red light, whatever. Fruit reflects. There's many fruits that turn red, reflects, and red really stands out to us as creatures to know, oh, that's a bit of fruit, that fruit's ripe for picking. Or if it's brown and it looks shiny and soft, it's probably gone off, it's rotting. It's for your survival. It's for your biological processing of that information coming in from the outside world, and how we process it and create our reality has more to do with the recognizing of different patterns out there, different aspects of reality. There is a common foundation because we all agree, and we're evolved. Natural selection had us evolve in particular ways that are most efficient for our current biology to, with that which was most efficient survived then in natural selection. Alright? Natural selection wasn't going to favor any human that was going, oh, brown rotten fruit, I'm going to eat that, as opposed to nice ripe fresh fruit ready to eat. don't eat the rotten fruit. Because, yeah, I think you get where I'm going here. I think you get the point. It's pattern recognition, recognizing the worlds around us in ways that is typical about that world and typical about how our brains are processing those variables that are typical out there in the world. And that's created, but it's more consistent because there are things that are consistent outside ourselves. But the creation from those consistencies isn't the real world, it's our biological reaction. So this reads on. This may also help explain why so many of us have similar incorrect memories. If you have a moment, either draw a picture in your mind's eye. The Monopoly man. Does he have a monocle? The iconic figure from the Parker Brothers game does not. But many of us incorrectly remember him as having one. Yeah, I do remember it that way. Monopoly having a monocle. In one of the series of studies by Prasad and Brainbridge 2022, when they showed the correct image to participants who reported being unfamiliar with this logo, and then asked them to draw what they had seen, nearly 1 in 4 drew the figure with a monocle. For those who reported being familiar with the logo, researchers asked them to draw him without first providing an example. Among those participants, nearly 1 in 2 gave him a monocle. One possibility is that our schemas may be leading us to false memories. A top hat, spats, and a bushy moustache seem to like they would go with a monocle. Yeah, absolutely. This is based on your assumptions about how things went in the present, your assumptions in the present tense, how your worldview and your perspective on the world can color how you expect your memories to have gone. You can add more information unwittingly by drawing up old memories and assume it went a particular way because it would have been typical of the present tense, but it wasn't typical back then. Of certain events as well. So this can help, just knowing this can help people improve memory recall by watching carefully. I mean, there's ways to bring your self-awareness of your surroundings. I wish people would do that more. People coming into the shop and asking for something that's right in front of them. Of course, the tills are right by the door and they just treat it as an information desk. It's tiring because one person does it, then another person does it, then another person does it. And people's lack of awareness of the bigger picture of the world is frustrating there because people who do this think it's all about them. So particularly if you work in retail, if you get people coming and go, can I just leave this on here? I'll be back in a minute. Do they really think they're the only person who's doing that? So if too many people do that, am I going to remember who's who when it gets really busy? Who's put what on the till? So I've accidentally sold people, and is later corrected, items that other people are just dropped on the till. But then head office insists that the baskets are halfway through the shop, where they should be at the front doors where people can see it. A bit of logical reasoning and sense and sensibility there. Yeah. What a crazy world. Crazy species we are. Anyway, one of the serious studies, I read that, blah, 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 blah. It's quite a large article. I don't mean blah, blah, blah in a disrespectful way. I'm just trying to skip through things. Top hat, spats, bushy moustache. Yeah, definitely. You'd think it would go with monocle. Another is that people may conflate this character with another famous top hat and spats wearing icon, Mr. Peanut. While Jiffy may not have been a brand of peanut butter. No, I don't remember that being a. It was the name of a popular brand of pancake mix. I didn't know that. With different cultures, different countries have different names of things. So what I conflate because of that alone can be different to what other people conflate. Conclusion: do Mandela effects show that you are living in a glitchy computer simulation, or that travel has changed the past, or that you somehow have jumped to a divergent timeline? Maybe, but it's more likely that these kinds of mistaken memories instead reveal surprising truths about how the human mind works. Works a lot by association and recognizing patterns and different things, similar events that are similar, but there are differences. Sometimes the differences within a similar event can be very stark to the older event, and it confuses people. So we rely on schemas to organize our experience and understanding of the world, and often use familiarity to indicate accuracy. We also can conflate pieces of knowledge and different experiences, creating plausible yet inaccurate collages like Kazam, the movie. Thank you for watching. I'll look forward to doing another video. This is right up the street of exploratory minds. This is why I did it on this video. The human brain is very nuanced, extremely complicated from our own perspective. Some would say it's kind of like officially the most complex object known to man. But these are like the human brain, thinking about the brain. It's kind of like trying to taste your own tongue. It's crazy, you know, but this self-awareness of how we are and the nuances, I think, is crucial in society. How we are easily controlled. We'll go in a minute. I do this. I say thanks for watching and I ramble on. How we're easily controlled and easily influenced via assumptions and definitely political agendas and terminologies is a larger part of this, to consider what is growing. Have some self-awareness. Look at what is going on inside you. It's incredibly important. I can't stress it enough. Self-analysis is crucial if we're ever going to survive the tribalistic nuances of our own species. Certainly we see that happening with the terminologies of the left versus the right. And it's very black and white. But the reality is it's not that simple. Thanks for watching. Take care. I'll look forward to doing the next video. Bye.